uh, set up back on stage because there's apparently, I think the Chinese have attacked my crane. That's what it is. It has to be. It's the only reason, the only excuse, the only possibility. How are you this fine day, Liberal Dan? Also, by the
Um,
way, Liberal Dan's on Twitch. We will often raid him when his show lines up after mine. There's a lot of overlap, and we will get to his schedule and see if we can work out a way to do that more uniformly in the future because a rising tide lifts all boats. That said, hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm spectacular, but I'll get better. Your thoughts on the State of the Union? Any rags, any bones, any rags today?
I think the State of the Union. One of my takeaways is that anybody who now after the State of the Union who dares say that Joe Biden is Sleepy Joe, Dementia Joe, or any of the other you know mentally deficient uh,
Right,
claims that they
pejoratives.
have,
Right.
and they must have either been watching it on Earth 2 or living on Earth 2 or watching in some other dimension, or
Right.
they're themselves have dementia and are just watching Donald Trump.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
I've been saying this for a while now. I saw his book tour
Mm-hmm.
before he ran for president, and he
Right.
was on the ball, no problems. I said it after the correspondence dinner. I've been saying it after every State of the Union,
Mm-hmm.
but he was calling audibles left and right last night, and
Yep.
he just absolutely killed it. He did great, and they tried to get him off. And besides, there was one or two things that could be clearly attributed to his stutter.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, he did an amazing job last night, and there's anybody who's trying to still stay on that bandwagon has clearly jumped the shark.
Yeah. Oh, that's again, I was talking about kind of this show becoming a talking points graveyard for the right, because we've watched so many of them die on the vine, and I have to say, none have hit a wall so quickly and caused such an about face as he can't uh, finish a sentence too. He's finishing too many sentences too quickly.
Right. It's
That
like
was
he's
the complaint last night.
yeah, he went from he's too slow to he's too quick. It's they can't make up their mind.
Right, and that's I gotta say, that's fucking bizarre. Right? The that is even a criticism in general, right? That they would go, he's talking too fast. In this era, in the computer information age world we all live in, the complaint is going to be that that anybody's talking too fast. Jesus Christ! Remember how much smoke they were blowing up Ramaswamy's ass
Right.
for how fast he talks, and he's like, he's a fast talker. That's what we like about him. He's got a lot to say, and he's gonna say it, by God. And yet when it comes to to Trump, somehow it upsets him. Like, he was
Right.
pissed. He he was like, he had a really odd response to it. And then again, the other thing too, and you've seen this idea that Biden must be on drugs.
Right. There must be lots of Adderall. Despite the, I mean, every conservative accusation is a confession, because
Yeah.
there's stuff that has come out that basically said the White House pharmacy during the Trump administration was basically a pill mill. So, but
Right.
they have to throw it at Biden must have been on Adderall last night, but that must be the only excuse as to why he was speaking that fast. Or no, maybe it's just because he's actually very
Passionate
on the
about what he's
ball
talking about,
and
and
quick
yeah.
witted, and knows what he's talking about. And look, I don't believe that this is the case. That he is. I've never believed that he is slow or whatever. But even if he was, I've said it on my podcast that he could be drooling in a wheelchair, being fed strained peas, having diarrhea coming out of his diaper, and he would still be a better president than Donald Trump.
Right. Because he would actually, I'll take somebody who's a little addled, who actually gives a shit, over
Right.
somebody who is, a self-involved megalomaniacal moron whose ego is so delicate that any authoritarian with half a brain has figured out how to directly manipulate him years ago. right? I mean,
Right.
they've been working this asshole for years, and he seems more welcoming of it than ever. You would think, and again, this is my argument about whether or not he's actually a narcissist versus he has narcissistic personality disorder, which is the big debate whether a narcissist truly loves themselves. I think he has pathological low self-esteem and can't stand his own fucking reflection, and he's afraid everybody else is going to catch on, and that's why he's so defensive about it. As a narcissist, personally, I take umbrage at the idea
Hmm.
that this asshole would be a true narcissist. That said, um, uh, it, they it would seem like after he won, and lost the popular vote, but won in 2016, that he would want to go like, I won on my own and I don't need Russia's help, and yet he's still doing the Russia if you're listening part. He's still kissing Putin's ass in case he needs to, in case of emergency, break glass. I need this guy to help me roll in and solve this. I mean, that's what the Zelensky bullshit was about,
Well,
right?
even when he wins, he sees every loss as a problem, and he freaks out about every loss. He
Mm-hmm.
freaked out about Washington D.C. losing that primary.
Mm-hmm.
He freaked out about losing California in 2016 to Hillary when there was no chance of him beating Hillary
Right.
Clinton in California in 2016. He has to win everything, and he has to make some weird excuse as to why he lost anything he loses,
Mm-hmm.
and he can't just accept the fact that sometimes you lose,
Right.
and he can never let it go, and he's obsessed, he's
Mm-hmm.
deranged. It's in one of the many reasons why you can't have him back in control.
Yeah. Well, and I think we all know that, um, right? But his followers, it's a feature, not a bug.
Right.
And when I mean, I thought one of the big post Sotu talking points for the right, and it may still be. We'll see how they shake out. They're throwing anything they can against the wall. He started with angry and talking too fast, and none of that shit worked. Um, that maybe they'll get around to how dare he talk that way to the Supreme Court, and that's him trying to pressure the court to do his bidding or something, which is, by the way, maybe just cover for Trump intimidating judges at every turn, right? And they
Right.
figure that might be a possibility, but in reality, uh, they got nothing. I'm looking forward to what their criticisms are, because I know they will be hilarious,
Right,
right?
because they have absolute. I mean, I've been seeing some of the things on Twitter or whatever today, and it's just they're grasping at straws that don't even exist.
Right.
It's pretty sad what they're trying to come up with, because it's he clobbered them, and they can't handle
Mm-hmm.
the fact that he clobbered them, and they have to come up with some excuse. And one of the other things about Biden that I bring up on my show a lot, but my grandparents knew him. My grandparents worked
Oh
on his
shit.
first senatorial campaign, and volunteered for it. And I mean, they weren't alive to see, him win the presidency. They were very proud of him when he became vice president, but
Right.
they always talked about how good of a person he was, about how good and kind and moral of a person that he was, and how
Right.
how just he would bend over backwards for them. They would always make sure to, you know, you know, they lived right around the corner from him. Like it was, you know, I
Mm-hmm.
teared up a little bit on his inauguration, because I
Yeah.
knew how happy they would have been to see it. And so one of so it's just I have just kind of a personal feeling. I know that he's just always trying to do the right thing for this country, and I know no conservative is going to just take my word for it, but it's just
Right.
I personally know that I trust my grandparents over anybody else pretty much on this issue, and I know that he is just the right person for the job, to be the person who's going to do the right thing for this country, and I'm not going to give up on that. So
Yeah. I love that Trump's response on Truth Social once it was back up was This is like a shouting match. Every line is being shouted, and he wrote it in all caps, which I just find like the most grandpa of grandpa things to do.
Right.
Like it was the closest thing to Trump just going loud noises just randomly. I don't know what we're yelling about.
Now,
Yeah.
do you find it odd? Like today, Trump managed to come up with the $90 million bond that he had to put up for the E. Jean Carroll verdict. It just happened to be. I mean, I'm trying not to be too much of a conspiracy theorist, but it
Right.
just happened to be on the same day that Viktor Orban's coming to visit him at Mar-a-Lago. Do you find that odd?
Sort of. I mean, here's the thing. Orban signed off on Sweden being in NATO. A lot of his pro-Trump backslapping seems like bullshit, authoritarian to authoritarian, believing that Trump, for a while at least, believing that Trump was going to get back in. My guess is that Trump, the deadline was Monday. They can't do it tomorrow for some reason, so they just did it beforehand. And if they wait till the last minute, maybe there's more interest even above that. They could freeze it in time a couple of days earlier, which would be he's going to lose that money. He knows he's going to lose. He's going to lose the appeal. It's as a matter of fact, if they reworked this shit, he'll probably end up owing more money. If he went back to court and fought it, they're like, okay, you keep fighting this shit and you keep talking shit about her. And you keep it like you're going to come back in here during the appeal and talk shit about her again. Here's another. We're going to have another jury trial. She's going to insist on you're not, abiding by the judgment, even in what you're saying about her, because you've already been found guilty of, sexually assaulting her in a civil sense in that particular trial, and this was just about how much money you owe her for defamation, and you're going to keep stacking that shit. We'll just put more. We'll keep upping the price, dumb fuck. And I think, maybe that, that's a lot of money. No matter what it is, it's a lot of money. It's probably $1 million he could save himself that he's already going to pay by freezing it in time today versus Monday and continuing to keep his fucking mouth shut. If his lawyers can keep him quiet and they freeze it in place, then he saves, at that the interest on something like that, especially in this circumstance, is a lot of money. It's worth it from an actuarial standpoint. Any attorney would tell you, file it the minute we walk out of here because they're going to stack it every day we wait.
Any lawyer that can actually manage to have Donald Trump keep his mouth shut is worth their weight in gold, because so far they haven't been able to do so.
Well, and the only thing that did. And that shit has dried up real fucking quick.
Right.
Is that money, right?
Right.
And we'll see if he can stick to it because he's losing his fucking mind. But my feeling is he will. I think what they're going to say is, do yourself a favor, leave it alone. We'll fight it in the appeal, but we don't want to keep. They're going to. I feel like if I was on his campaign team and I was evil, what I would be saying to him is, look. They're going to use this issue every time you bring it up to attack you with, suburban moms. We know it's bullshit. You know it's bullshit. But just the story of it in the news, until we deal with the appeal and you win, we need to keep quiet about this so they can't use it as a weapon to take our voters away. And what we'll do is we'll keep punting this shit and she'll never see a fucking dime. Now, they're bullshitting him. They're lying to him. But it would work. Right? It would work. And so I think the payment has, it's more just like there's going to be anybody he's meeting with, he's probably going to have to pay somebody in fucking court, right? Any moment he's got between breakfast and dinner every day, he's going to have to make some sort of payment or to a lawyer or show up to someplace or file something or whatever. So everything will be aligned with it. That's my guess. And it won't help. Orban, by the way, is just playing both sides of the fence. I think he was buying when he was kissing Trump's ass about put him back in charge and all that stuff. I think he was buying the polls. What I would watch with Orban is after. already he knows. He's been meeting with the State Department. He's talked to Biden and that kind of stuff, and he's signed off on Sweden and Finland. Like, they're not balking at any of the NATO shit. So obviously he's on the team no matter what blather he's putting out. But on top of that, like, after this dinner with Trump, and where he's sitting, you're sitting across from this sweaty fuckwad that you know is not the dude you had dinner with a year ago or 2 years ago, and you're like, oh, fuck, right? Watch Orban for the next 6 months is my guess, is my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, Laura Trump has been apparently, she's officially RNC. Hold on, I want to get her official title with the RNC, whatever. But she's officially part of the, like, she's on the committee, or she's, they're installing her as the, as the chairman. She's officially, they installed her as the chairman. Yeah, Laura Trump. This is according to the Washington Post. Top advisor from Trump campaign will steer a party committee facing a dramatic fundraising shortfall. Laura Trump, daughter-in-law of the former president, is one of the newly installed leaders of the Republican National Committee. There you go. So she's a chairman of the fundraising committee, probably. Formerly elected, Trump's choice of Michael Watley to run, and Laura Trump, the former president's daughter-in-law, as its two highest-ranking officers at a meeting here on Friday. The RNC operations, run by top advisor to Trump campaign Chris Lasivita, and Watley, who chaired the North Carolina GOP. Let's see, pledge to expand this, and then so there. I guess it's a steering committee. So there's like three main people. There's not the
right.
Yeah, he's the chairman officially, but she's the fundraising chair. Will that be the thing? I mean, I hope so, because nothing will fuck up Republicans' chances at rebuilding their party and getting elected like Laura Trump steering money from the RNC into Trump's pocket, where he will fucking.
There's not going to be. I mean, there may be money. As I talked about this the other day, that there may be money that like the Republican Congressional Campaign Committee might have that they can spend on their congressional candidates, and maybe the Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee might have some. But the RNC, all that money is just going to go to pay Trump's legal fees, and so they're going to be really shorthanded. Meanwhile, Biden, they're setting records as to how much money they're being able to raise. And so they're going to have a huge war chest. And with the advantages in California now, with how smart shifted with him, running his ads.
Republican, right.
So now that he's running against a Republican, now he can target, funds, towards, California swing districts and other districts all around the country. That frees up even more money. The Democrats are doing really well when it comes to the ability to spend money, raise money, and, not have anybody, majorly under criminal indictment, with, I guess, the exception of Menendez, who,
who's on his way out, and there's a good replacement for him waiting in the wings. So I'm totally cool with that. Like, and again, I think you and I are both on the same page with just like, fuck that guy.
Yeah,
is the idea. Hold on, let me bring this over here. So this is the story. Whoops, sorry. I'll move it. Don't worry. There we go. There we go. All right.
You can move.
This is the story from the Washington Post. Her response. She personally gave, I want to say, $100,000. Yeah, he goes, we have to raise a lot of money, said Laura Trump in her acceptance speech following another unanimous vote. While she held up a check that she said was made out for $100,000. And again, if there's anything more fucking Trumpian about this, it's this. While she held up a check that she said was made out for $100,000. Like, the Washington Post can't just confirm it was a $100,000 check from Trump for the RNC, or from Laura Trump and Eric Trump for the RNC, or some shit like that. They literally go, yeah, she held up a check that she said. That, Jesus Christ. It sounds like they're back to their old St. Jude's charity ripoff shit. Well, we have raised this money, minus obviously service fees of about 80% for St. Jude's today. Eric and I couldn't be prouder to pass along 20% of your donations to children who need it, while padding our feathering our nest with this 80,
Right.
the extra 80 grand. Um, oh God.
Because
Since
as
that
anybody you trust raising money for you, it's a Trump, right?
right. Since the day that my father-in-law, god damn it, just the fucking, Jesus Christ, you know how lame that is as a Democrat. Like one of the biggest things about Bush that bothered me, besides the fact that he was an incompetent asshole with terrible policies, and he was basically letting Cheney run his fucking White House from the back seat, and all the other terribleness that came from them, was the strict like father to son bullshit. Like I thought we fought a war so we wouldn't ever do that shit. And people laying it at Hillary's feet like it's the Clinton dynasty. Like motherfucker, she married him. It's not his
Right.
goddamn daughter. He's not passing this on, father to daughter the way Bush 1 did to Bush 2, father to son. And fuck that. I think you and I both. I like wouldn't you find it fucking cringy as shit if one of the Obama daughters or fucking Hunter Biden or somebody was like running the DNC?
Right. Yeah, that would be odd. Well, especially with Hunter, with all his current legal issues. But
Well, I mean, he ran the UN food program, right?
right,
The UN US World food program without a hitch.
right,
The weird thing is, while addicted, you want to talk about like a maintenance addict, dude. With and this is there's an argument about like post drugs, during drugs, where he was in his recovery during that period of time. Kind of, pulling what I would say is a Robert Kennedy, RFK Jr., where he, noted philanderer and heroin user. RFK Jr. was, like Hunter Biden on smack,
mm-hmm.
right? Did everything that Hunter did, I think, except crack, and that was just a matter of the timing of it because he got into it earlier. He's older, but he was a heroin user. He talks about it in his book, and it was a big thing, and then he cheated on his wives and all kinds of stuff. And there was an argument that he's just basically back on the road, running his campaign, looking for scattered ass and attention. Was on top of that, but like he had a past not unlike Hunter, right? And one of the ways that they rehabbed his image, the Kennedys were working on like getting his shit together so he wouldn't be an embarrassment to the family, was getting, he's a lawyer. We'll put you on some environmental justice stuff, and Earth Day was really big, so we'll people will eat that shit up, right? And that's what it was. That's what they did, and it's fine. Here's the thing. I don't think they had to take him kicking and screaming. He loves falconing. I'm sure he views himself as a lover of clean rivers and streams and clean air, right? In theory, but it was hardly his idea, but it worked, right? And so you look at Hunter Biden, and they're like, well, the World Food Program is a great place for you to start doing some good, and at least putting forward an image of, we're putting that shit behind us and we're moving towards being, in charge of big charities and that kind of stuff. And then ultimately it was just like, I'm not going to be able to do any shit while the Trump crowd is on the scene. Fuck them. So I'll just go paint.
One of the things with with the Hunter Biden thing, like, and that I'd love to bring up to conservatives is that, and it kind of back to Trump though, is that with Trump's arguments that he's made with the whole immunity thing. So let's say Hunter Biden, let's say he actually lied and on his taxes. Let's say it wasn't just a mistake. Let's say he actually lied on his taxes criminally. And let's say Joe Biden, using the power of his office, helped to, helped him do that, helped cover it up. Not saying he did, but let's say he did all that. And then let's say the GOP ran House said, okay, well, this is clearly an impeachable offense. Let's impeach him. They did it immediately. It goes to the Senate. And the Senate goes, well, the Democrats in the Senate are like, okay, well, you didn't convict your guy when your guy clearly committed an insurrection. We're not going to convict our guy. Let it, will follow Mitch McConnell's thing, let it go to the courts, and then you follow Trump's legal argument that he's making. Well, it's not, you're not impeached, therefore you can't, you can't criminally convict. It's the most bizarre legal argument. Like I don't understand how anybody buys this BS that they're trying to bring up with this whole thing. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, they're throwing all sorts of spaghetti at the wall, hoping it sticks, and some of it's not even spaghetti. It's the most bizarre legal argument that, like, that's, I guess this is what happens when you don't pay your attorneys and you have to go to like Wish to get your attorneys, or Temu or whatever.
The Alyosha says in our chat, Trump responded to the speech in real time on his Truth Social site, defending himself and blasting Biden for what he said may be the angriest, least compassionate, and worst State of the Union speech ever made. And she says, Trump is silly. Yes, Trump is a silly, silly man. He is as silly as Camelot. And I have to, like, the like the image remake, and that's the problem with Trump, is that, like, every accusation we always say is a projection, but I think that undercuts the idea that it's more like a smokescreen, that it's it's meant to dirty up the argument that everybody's a crook, but I'm the crook that can help you, right? I'm the crook that can salvage your life. I'm not stealing from you. I want to steal from these guys, and you don't even like these guys. I want to fuck up their lives and their plan and their future. I want to give, you'll get a great future. I don't know how I'm going to fuck up the economy for the upper 1% the way I want, and give it to them the way I want to without fucking you out of your lifestyle. But just imagine I can. That somehow a rising tide doesn't lift all boats, and that somehow, I'm going to attach fucking weights to your ankles and just count on it, right? I beg your pardon, Alyosha. I didn't. You're he, him. Excellent. Hi. Hello. So most people say it's just him projecting because of, which would come from a sense of guilt. I think it's just his folks know that he's got a real liability with voters, and the best they can do is just spread the word that Biden's more corrupt, or that corruption is normal. That corruption is the law of the land, and that's just how it works, and tough shit. And at least I'm the bad guy that you like.
Right.
It's not, I'm the bad guy you want to have a beer with if I drink beer. Is that, that'll let you have a beer with Brett Kavanaugh if you kind of borrow the Trump or the Bush methodology, right? The other thing too, I guess the other moments that we have to at least mention. And by the way, I want to remind everybody, Liberal Dan, what's your Twitch handle? Twitch.tv/
It's Liberal Dan Radio. It's Liberal Dan Radio on Twitch, and if you just go to liberaldanradio.com is what gets you to the YouTube channel.
Great. Okay, cool. Liberal Dan Radio being the easy marker on the socials to watch the live stream. And when do you go live? What's your regular schedule these days?
It's Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central, so 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. So
excellent. There you go. That's why we don't have overlap much time, because I'm usually done at 5, or I'm going insanely long, like a maniac. Right. But in future, at some point, as the election steams forward, and I am in different time zones and stuff, we will get close there. And at the very least, I know that it'll be impossible for you to send a raid my way, but I could send it your way at the very least at some point. The other one was, of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene and her whole, like, say her name thing, which they borrow from, like people who are, killed by police violence or that kind of stuff. The say his name, the George Floyd kind of stuff. They borrow that shit in the same way that they borrow the word hostages from the fucking people who were taken on October 7th. The way that they, like, call the Jan 6ers political prisoners, the same way they use the word regime, right? And I would say, somebody was saying George Floyd. I was like, interestingly enough, George Floyd's the name everybody did say. I think it was Breonna Taylor was one of the people that
Breonna
they really
was
pushed
the one
this.
Say her name.
Yeah, say her name part, because they would talk about, the woman or something like that in Louisville and that kind of stuff. And that was crucial. And that's what she's stealing. She's stealing that, and trying to use that as cover for her bullshit. but like uh, she, Marge comes in wearing like dressed like a fucking boat parade, right? Like she's a fucking golf cart at the Villages,
Right.
and you know,
Probably
and
has the same amount of STIs as like the Villages too.
oh god. Well, I mean, yeah, hey, you got to go out with something. You got to die
Right.
with something, die of something. So you might as
I mean,
well.
she cuckold. How many times has she cuckolded her husband? You know.
Ugh, brutal. Just
I mean, they're obsessed. They're so obsessed with cuckoldry,
whoops.
and the fact that they love her just makes total sense. They call everybody. They used to call everybody a cuck, and
Hmm.
now they love her, and she literally did it. So
Yeah, and there's like they also love these like this like tradcon wife was the big thing too. Like, and that's
right,
arguably where and I'm going to cover the Republican response, if you can even call it that, later on today in my afternoon show, because it's going to take a little time. Because there's a lot. It's a
oh
lot. But they used to have this idea that the traditional, conservative wife doesn't need to work. The husband works. She stays home, raises the kids. Which the ad absurdum version of that is no women in politics, no women in boardrooms, no women in, certainly no Supreme Court justices. You out of your fucking mind? So they go against it, like with Amy Coney Barrett, when they're like, she can be a control point, and she's already done her time cranking out some kids. I guess that's the part where it becomes okay, when after you're done,
right,
right?
I guess
Um, but then you look at Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and they're kind of even Sarah Palin. I would argue, like she was really the canary in the meth mine, in terms of like her weird fucking Alaska hillbilly family bullshit. That just you could argue, like, we always kind of thought like, oh, Lauren Boebert, she's kind of like a cuter, like a hotter, younger version of Sarah Palin. They just found one and just decided, oh yeah, we like, this is our type, like Dick Wolf on, always casting women as the assistant DA, and they all kind of look like Jill Hennessy. Just like we
right.
need a new Jill Hennessy, right? That's the idea. Who was, by the way, perfect. But like, and then her like lifestyle. I was like, whoa, fucking nailed it! Christ, it was like a reboot. She literally was like a reboot of Sarah Palin. Like, same plot, same storyline, but a little more exaggerated for a modern audience. You know what I mean? Where the
Right.
Palin's got into fist fights and shit like that. Her son goes on a fucking crime spree. Sarah Palin like breaks up with her husband, and he kind of disappears into the background. But there was allegations of drunken fights and back and forth or whatever. Bobert's just doing it out in the fucking open, and then Sarah Palin might be dating somebody, and that's kind of a page 60 thing that they're talking about behind the scenes, and then fucking Bobert's groping her date at Beetlejuice, like she's operating
Right.
like I said, a flight simulator made out of Play-Doh. Just fucking just Top Gunning it, and
In
he's
front
like
of
rubbing
kids,
her.
the kids right there,
Yeah,
and they're all worried
yeah,
about all these drag queens doing things in front of kids. Well, here she is doing something in front of kids.
right.
I didn't do that. Well, here's a camera. Well, I guess I
Okay,
did.
groomer. Right.
Yeah.
It's uh, it, do you think they've just kind of jettisoned the illusion of it, because they seem to talk about it that way? I mean, like, it's almost like the more they do that shit, the more like Candace Owens is going for the TradCon audience. Like,
Right.
like that, if you look at how she's talking lately, she's talking like a fucking quiverful Duggar. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
It's it's odd. I mean, she was always kind of like family values, that kind of like conservatism. Most of it was anti BLM, which is where she made her bones. And then, I guess some idea that like Republicans are, for freedom, hashtag freedom, freedom spelled
Right.
DUMB. But
Right.
that's what she was selling. Now she's straight up going with this idea that a woman's place is in a home, and Hollywood is trying to, and rock and roll music and hip hop are trying to turn our children into monsters, and they're going to succeed because of the devil.
But like with the rebuttal last night, I mean, the optics of the rebuttal is just like, here you're a young woman senator from Alabama, and where do you
Mhm.
put her? You put her right in the freaking kitchen. Like,
Right. That yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And I'm like, well, she had to be barefoot. She had to be. I mean,
you're
was
right.
that the wink and the nod? Was that them? Like, was that her cucking? Um, the GOP or something like that, or being cucked, or what position in the cucking she would have for her and Wesley? Was Wesley
Right.
being cucked off camera by her sitting
Right.
there, being the person in charge, but with her shoes off in the fucking? And by the way, can I just say, from a from like a production standpoint, if you're gonna say you're sitting at the kitchen table, let me see the fucking table. It
Right.
it, it looked like she was kneeling in front of the kitchen island. You know what I mean? Because the island was like right here, and
Right.
and like I get it, but I mean, like, is there something wrong with just fucking standing there like this, leaning on the island, and just we'll assume it's where you eat because everybody island table. What's the difference? We'll shake it off. But it was super fucking weird,
Yeah.
you know?
And just her, I guess not performance, but her
Yeah,
cadence and everything was just very strange. Just very
yeah.
Stepford wife, very, I don't know,
Very
just
smiley and then
yeah,
rageful and then smiley and then
right.
rageful. What it was like? It reminded me of when if you took those morning, like Good Morning San Diego kind of shows, and they vacillate between puff pieces and real news, and it's really fucking awkward because they transition between, like, Claire is going to be showing us how tacos can be an easy solution for the family. And then right, no, these are just delicious, and you make these, and these, is that cilantro? And they go through that
Right.
bits of it, and then they basically set the taco down. And now for the traffic, a 7-car pileup involving a car full of preschoolers was set on fire today by an act of violence by a person. We go live to the scene right now. The children are just now being put out with water, and then they come back and go, those
These
poor
tacos are
parents.
delicious.
Yeah. Now, hats are back in style, and it's
Right.
almost springtime. And I've never been a springtime hat person. Have you? Like Gary, and there's always some like aging game show looking host next to the relatively hot, woman they replace on the regular. They have to Law and Order the woman on the set, but the dude can look like a deflated Pat Sajak. You know what I mean? Like a cross between Trump and Pat Sajak. Yeah, I haven't seen this 1,000 fucking times. You know, but that's it. It looked like that. It was like her vacillating between stories. There is so much hope, and yet there was a time when this woman, the fact that she was able to smile after the story of the woman she met who had been sex trafficked since she was 12.
Right.
So I'm assuming she's what, 18, 19? Is that the idea? At
Right.
most, she's a woman now. Or how old is this woman? So a good portion of it happened all during Trump. Did she get a 4-year reprieve during the Trump years? Who the fuck are you talking about? That's the difference between also Biden's thing was like, tonight we have so and so here who did this and is going through this situation, and you see them and there's their story and you can look it up. Nobody knows who the fuck this woman's talking about, or even if that woman actually exists. It's
Well, the
so
other
fucking weird.
the other tone deaf thing, she was talking about how, America, freed, Europe from fascism, and we went over there and
With our
we
suckers and
helped
losers.
save, we saved, Europe
Mm-hmm.
from fascism, but then we're sitting there and the GOP is preventing us from saving Ukraine from, by
Yeah,
giving them aid against Russia. Like, how, it's
yeah.
completely tone deaf. Meanwhile, and you sit there and you see Biden talking about Ukraine, and he says, we're not going to back down, I'm not going to bow. And you see, like, the speaker just with his little hands, just like,
Yeah,
you
it's a little
barely
shit
see him
clap.
clapping a little bit, just like barely see it clapping. Like,
Well,
okay, does that mean you're going to actually pass the legislation or no?
well, that it does. I mean, arguably, I don't give him enough like credit to actually be signaling, but he knows. He knows the vast majority of the Republicans are like, pass this shit. I don't have a bunch of fucking QAnons in my district like Marjorie Taylor Greene says that's clamoring for this fucking horseshit, and I'm not going to let you hang around this bullshit around my neck if I'm running in a purple district or even
Right.
something that leans slightly fucking purple or blue. Like, good God. We have a tenuous grip on this fucking place, and you're gonna make me run as the fucking pro-Putin candidate? Are you out of your fucking mind? Pass the shit. It's a drop in the fucking bucket. We have a $1 trillion military budget, and you're gonna dick around with $60 billion just so Putin can kill more civilians? Have you seen the fucking headlines of the attacks that Russia has done on Odessa and other places? As the other headline is, they're running out of ammo and they can't fight back. And we're the ones that are causing that, essentially, by holding back for no particular reason. Just needed a 2-week vacation. Thanks, fucko. So that whole, like, clapping bullshit, they're going to bring it to the floor. They're going to be a bunch of wailing and gnashing of teeth, but it's going to pass. And it's going to be one of the... Yeah.
It came up in my Facebook memories recently that when Russia invaded Crimea during the Obama administration, and one of the things that came up was me commenting about how the Republicans were being critical of Obama during his administration, that Obama wasn't being tough enough with Putin when Putin invaded Crimea. Like, so since the Obama administration and now, they've done a complete 180 on how we should be tough with Putin, all because of one person bending over backwards or forwards for Putin, and that is Orange Julius Donald Trump. And he's beholden to him, they're beholden to Trump, so they're not going to cross Trump because Trump doesn't want to cross Putin because reasons.
Because that's where the Deutsche Bank loans came from.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what it is. Like, look, Deutsche Bank was backfilling. Russia was backfilling Deutsche Bank loans for all kinds of shady fuckers, and Deutsche Bank would hand out these loans, and the reason they could do it without worrying about their bottom line was because it wasn't their money. We'll invest this money. We'll put it in your bank. We'll put $1 billion in your bank, but you got to dole it out to our friends. And we don't care if there's a return on it, so you guys can just keep the return if there is one. If it fails, it's not your loss. We'll eat it, which is effectively what they did. That's where the money laundering shit comes from. It's why Deutsche Bank came there and said, we're fine. We don't need to, no, we don't need to file anything. We're okay. Meanwhile, they sued him because he was behind on payments on the Chicago Tower, and then he countersues them for $3 billion for predatory lending practices. And then magically, they find another investor to, again, backfill his debt through Deutsche Bank. And just, cool, okay, you can keep your stake, but it's not your money anymore. What? Who the fuck gets a deal like that if you're not on the take?
Right.
It's so weird. Oh, by the way, sort of breaking news. On top of the $93.1 million that Trump had to pay today, he's been ordered by Justice Stein, who was overseeing his lawsuit against Orbis Business Intelligence, which is the company that Christopher Steele started, for claims made about him in the Steele dossier. She found that his case against them was bound to fail, as he did not have any evidence to prove that they were malicious in it, and or that they were wrong. He would not even offer proof that it had never happened, which is kind of the crucial part of it all. If you're going to claim that thing, if you're going to, air your dirty laundry and talk about shit like, I never had somebody piss on a bed. Oh, okay. Well, prove that they learned that in bad faith, or prove that you didn't do it. Right. And he was willing to do neither. They just ordered him to pay £300,000 for their legal costs. He has to pay their legal fees.
Nice.
Oh, it's nice. Today, just happening. It was fun.
Now, the one thing that I'm more critical of President Biden on, and more of the Biden campaign on, and maybe they're going to do it more later, is they need to be more vocal about all of the stuff that they've done on student loans. Because despite the activist conservative Supreme Court and them completely, their horrible ruling on student loans, because the same authority that they were trying to use to, cancel the $10,000 to $20,000 in debt, that it was used during the Trump administration to actually suspend payments and suspend interest. It's the same author, same power, same authorization, same abilities. they have they've been doing the restructuring with the save plan, with which has
Mm-hmm.
saved a whole bunch of
Yeah.
people in student loan repayment a whole bunch of money. They've been going through student loans because a bunch of these student loan servicers have been wrongly pushing people into forbearance
Mm-hmm.
when they shouldn't have, and that just gets them more fees from the federal government because they're still servicing them. So the Biden administration said, look, we're going to take those time spent in forbearance and deferment that's not in school deferment, and we're going to count that as time in repayment, which
Yeah.
means that the people are hitting their 20 or 25-year marks where their loans get forgiven
Yeah.
more quickly. And so those people are having their loans forgiven as it's written in their student loan contracts, in the
Right.
promissory notes, as is required. And for the people that are still in repayment, again, like, I haven't gotten my adjustment done. I'm still in repayment. I still haven't had my adjustment done yet because
Mm-hmm.
they did the adjustments to the people who would automatically be forgiven first.
Mm-hmm.
But I got moved into the save plan, and for the
Great.
duration of my loan, not accounting the adjustment yet, the save plan will save my family at least 30 grand over the course of the duration of my loan.
It's great. Yeah.
So, and if that's me, a lot of other people are being helped like that as well. And
Agreed.
so more people need to be talking about how this administration has done more than I think every administration combined on student loans, and have
Right.
helped so many Americans on this. And that's one of the things I will continue to shout until election day, that
Mm-hmm.
this administration has helped so many people on student loans with the one-time adjustment and with the save plan.
Agreed.
And it's just, it needs to be
Well,
talked about more. And maybe they have a plan to talk about it more closer to the election to have
I
more
think they
bang for
do.
their buck. I don't
I
know, but I
Yeah.
think everybody else who has a voice to talk about it, like, that's why I've been doing it, needs to tell their stories about it, because more people need to understand that. Because there are people who are whining about it. They're like, what happened to my stuff? There's so many people being helped right now. It's ridiculous how good this plan is, how
Right.
effective it is, and how people are being lifted out of their financial problems
Mm-hmm.
because of the actions of this administration specifically. And to ignore that is
Mm-hmm.
just stupid. So we
I
need we
Yeah.
need
So
everybody needs to talk about this.
yeah, I have a theory about how you would run messaging on an election in my own way, that, as far as you poll on what deals with what age groups and where, right?
Mm,
And the thickest motherfuckers, the ones that take the longest to convince, you hit early and often all the way through. The people that don't pay attention till the last minute, you save that as one of your closing arguments, on top of just, putting a bow on the argument you've been making for a long time. So, and with uh and with certain voters, they want steady. They just want to hear that you've got a D on your chest, or you've got an R on your chest, and you make sure you're constantly hitting that for them. And as long as they feel comfortable, they believe it's their duty to vote. Mostly old people are like this. Older voters know they know the issues, they know how they feel about them, they know why they like you, and they've already made up their mind. So they don't need to be convinced. They just need to know you're staying on track, because the track is important. They don't view life as a car, more like a train, and it's headed in a particular direction. They bought their ticket and they're riding it to the end. And even if they viewed it as a car, they're not going to take any unscheduled extracurricular
right.
curricular trips off the highway. They're on a long trip and they've got resources and they're pointed it in that direction. Older people tend to deal with that. Middle class people, and there's a variance in that. Up and comers, people just starting their middle class experience, first time home buyers, people who have a business that either came and went and failed, people who are investing, moving into that zone. There's a huge chunk of Americans. They're a lot more porous as a group. They've got a lot of issues, and so you've got to lay groundwork, and they've got to see it not just from you. They won't just take it from the campaign. They want to hear it from the world. That's why the consumer sentiment thing is such a lagging indicator, and why the Biden administration knows as long as it keeps going the right direction, they're not going to coast on it. But if they crow too much, it'll create an anti-propaganda industrial complex on the right side, on the right wing side. And so if you just let it speak for itself and keep it the policies, those people will come around because they're like, oh, shit's working. I didn't realize how easy I had it. I don't realize how good it's going for me in particular. And again, it's a thick group of people who have a lot of moving parts. Young people, if they're not already decided because they're girls who believe in reproductive rights and the boys that support them, right? If they're not that, they're going to decide in fucking October, which is why the October surprise was always sort of aimed at your low information voter. The people who come in at the last minute who are just going to, if they see something shiny or something scary specifically, which is what the Hunter Biden laptop bullshit was supposed to be, or any particular October surprise, it's supposed to scare you away from the other person and towards one direction or not at all. In the Republican world, it's dissuade them from voting or make them scared of voting for the Democrat for whatever reason. And that's enough. You don't have to get them to vote for you. You just have to scare them off of that. And then we can diminish their vote over time. So I think the student loan stuff, you're going to start hearing a lot of that in August, the beginning of school. And for a couple of reasons. One is people entering their fourth year of college, they're going for a degree, or a master's or something like that, knowing that they're not only are you going to see some relief for some people if they go into certain industries. We're going to make sure that if you go into public service, for example, we're going to forgive a chunk of your loan. That going in, but also the practices you're engaged in right now aren't going to be predatory the way they used to be. We're going to handle that as well. So you watch for like executive orders around August and September that have to deal with this as well, and him making the case for a bill that would handle this so that. And that you'll see this with government-backed bills. They have handled a lot of it and bringing attention to that. That's my theory. That's your time frame. So old folks, they just want steady. It's the middle class, especially the upper middle class, that spends a lot of money and actually votes every time. Those are the people that allegedly Trump won over and then lost. Those are the people you got to talk to the most. And there's a complex series of issues for those folks. And then there's the kids that you just gotta fucking. They're going to make a TikTok decision is the idea. That would be student loans.
Some of the person in the chat said something about cost when it comes to the student loans, whether the plan costs more. Right. My argument with costs has been the loans that are being forgiven, a vast majority, if not all of them, are already federally held. And if they're federally held, it doesn't cost any additional money to forgive that loan. Like if I loan you $20 and then I decide, okay, you don't have to pay me back that money. It doesn't cost me any additional money to forgive you that $20 loan. So if the federal government, they've already spent that money to have the loan, it doesn't cost the federal government any additional money to forgive that loan. So whatever costs are being talked about, there is no cost. A lot of times conservatives will be like, well, conservatives will often make the argument, well, you agreed to pay the loan off, you should pay your loan. No, I signed a contract. Now, when I was 18 years old, I actually read my promissory note, shockingly enough. I'm a nerd like that, I guess. And so I found it interesting that there were forgiveness provisions in there. Like, oh, this is interesting. I noted there were forgiveness provisions. So if I sign a contract, which a promissory note is a contract, I should have the ability to take advantage of every single part of that contract, which includes those forgiveness provisions. So the conservatives are saying, well, you should pay your loans, are saying that I should be denied a term of the contract that I signed. Meanwhile, those same conservatives are going to vote for the guy who made a career out of stiffing his contractors, stiffing his attorneys, and stiffing a whole bunch of other people in the contracts that he signed, where there was no provision to, well, I can get out of paying what my debts are. There was none of that. And I'm not even talking about the bankruptcies. I'm talking about the people who are like, well, I agreed to pay you X, but I'm going to pay you Y, which is less than X. And if you want me to pay the entire amount, sue me, which is going to cost you more than what you would, than what I've paid you already. So just deal with it. That sort of thing.
Right. And I think, Republicans balk at it to some degree because when they're talking about giving a tax break to their Republican buddies and their business friends, they have to find ways to make it, either palatable to some of their more conservative friends. They can't just not fun cut a hole in the budget. It's got to come from somewhere, or it's got to be paid for with a little bit of something. One of the areas they count on it, whether because they don't give a shit about it, but it's there, is the interest on student loan debt. That's one of the ways the government takes in money. And what Biden's doing is a structural tax cut that funds higher education. And already Democrats are the party of public education, from kindergarten and hopefully eventually preschool all the way to graduation from high school, and then 2 years of community college. Democrats are all about making sure that you have as much education as you need to be successful in your life. And Biden's coming in with his union love that he has and talking about apprenticeships and vocational schools and tech workers and gearheads and machinists and engineers and that kind of stuff. The kind of stuff you go to a vocational college for as part of this package, instead of just higher learning academic, college for college's sake, like, I don't know, where Ted Cruz went to college, for example, went to university. But college instead of university would be the key thing. So he's looking at a way to make that possible for everybody, and targeting a tax cut to people who want to go further and want to pay for that, need more than 2 years of vocational training, as a welder or as an engineer or something like that, or as a computer tech or something like that, to make sure that job happens here, to make sure the skill set happens here. That extra money is going to come in the form of what's effectively a tax cut. That tax cut comes in, we're not going to take in that money as taxes in the United States, in the U.S. government. We're going to let you keep it. We're going to just let it go. And therefore make it easier for you to pay off your loan and make it cheaper for you in the long term. That's my theory, is that this is effectively a targeted tax cut for education. It's right. Like an education coupon for people who have, at least, what would be quote unquote useful degrees, stuff we need more of, specific sectors, and certainly anything in public service. And that's why he was talking about the SAVE program especially. But like he mentioned last night, nurses, firemen, police officers, and the Army Corps of Engineers, those folks. Yeah. So overall, do you think, I guess the big question, we'll end it on this. Do you think he turned it around last night? Do you think it ended up, because I have my theory that it was a rope-a-dope, that the whole reason they didn't attack the age thing as much as they did is because they knew at the very least, say what you will about him, too loud, too shouty, speaks too fast, flubs words occasionally, you weren't going to walk away with Sleepy Joe. So Sleepy Joe benefited him as a moniker. It fucked Trump ultimately, because say what you will about him, he wasn't sleepy, right? During that campaign, and he still isn't. And so I think they knew going into this, just keep talking, keep flapping, asshole. That seems to be where they were going. Do you think it's gonna? How do you think it's gonna ring out with voters?
I think last night helped. I think it will help a lot. I think as people play the clips and watch the clips and they use the clips, I think it's going to help with a significant portion of people. I think it may help with some of those Haley voters who don't, who are the never Trumpers, but might have just might have sat home, but may decide, okay, maybe we'll jump on board. I think with some of his recent talk, how he's been a little bit more stern with Netanyahu, with you have to be more responsible with how you have to make sure to protect innocent lives. Right. That may help with some of the individuals who may have been upset with how he's been dealing with Israel, which has been, frankly, we've had 4 years of somebody who, I'll use diplomacy in quotes, whose diplomacy was everything was out in the open, and Biden has been more diplomatic about it and using back channels and actually being diplomatic about things. So a lot of the things that was going on with that was going on non-visibly, so people weren't seeing things. Then all of a sudden, boom, you had a temporary ceasefire where hostages got done and aid got through for a little bit, and then
Mhm.
he's still working on, he was working on a deal where Monday was supposed to be a ceasefire that Hamas rejected. So you had anyway. I think
Right.
ultimately at the end of the day, I think last night will be effective for him, and I think it's going to be a good launching off point. And I think as long as one of the things that I say is that a lot of people say is Democrats love to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, but Joe Biden has a long history of winning campaigns and knowing how to do this, and he surrounded himself with good people. He destroyed Trump in 2020 when there was COVID, and they said he did it from his basement. Well, he did it from his basement, and he beat him by 8
7
million
million.
votes.
Yeah, right.
And
8.1. Yeah.
now there are people who have seen how deranged Trump was after January 6th, and 1 out of 10 Trump voters from 2020 in polls are saying that they're never going to vote. They're not going to vote for Trump again. So that means Trump lost 7 million. So
it's going to be brutal. And if those people aren't going to show up because they can't bring themselves to support somebody like him, then there's a lot of down ballot damage to the Republican Party that they're staring at as well.
Right.
We do have a futility issue, and we'll talk about the next time you come on the show. We can have you back in the near future, but also Monday and Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Liberal Dan is on Twitch and YouTube simulcasting, I'm assuming.
Yes.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good man. Go to liberaldan.com. That'll take you to the YouTube page, and twitch.tv/liberaldanradio.com. Right. Yep. And twitch.tv/liberaldanradio will get you to the Twitch channel. Like I said, Mondays and Wednesdays. We'll talk about this next time, but Trump is going to, maybe the Republican Party is just going to count on the fact that they're fucked. And if they're ever going to work their way back, they have to be pure conservatives in the next round of trying to, push themselves to the front of this fucking whatever remains of their party. So they've got to be purists or they'll never go anywhere. So better to go down swinging, and do the TYT thing. Nobody if we can't get everything, nobody gets anything. And go, I fought like hell, but these Marxist fascists drove me out of office, right?
Right.
And we'll have to see, but because they're gonna lose. They're gonna lose a shit ton of votes this year because, again, you're talking in that 7 million that are walking away from him, not including the Haley voters. The 30% of them that aren't going to vote for him, right? 30% of Republicans who voted for Haley, who are like, fuck that dude, who are, again, either going to vote for Biden directly just to show Trump like the door, because that's what you do. You don't not vote Republicans to get rid of Trump. You vote for Biden to get rid of Trump, and you go, no, I choose my country over party, period. And I'm not going to phone it in. This motherfucker thinks he owns my party, and he doesn't. He's a second-generation rich kid, pussy-grabbing scumbag who was partied with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not letting him have my party. I'm showing him the door. And the way you show him the door is by voting for Biden. Because it's got to be fucking embarrassing. He's got to want to go to jail. You got to make him want, like, he'd rather be in jail. Otherwise, he's going to keep coming back, and he thinks he owns you. He's never going to be convinced unless you convince him. We're not going to. You and I are voting for Biden. I'm cool. I'm excited to do it. I like the guy. I think he's done a fantastic fucking job, especially in spite of the opposition. Holy shit. But even without that, just the infrastructure bill alone and the removing of lead pipes is going to change American society as we know it in about another decade because of the number of people who will not be growing up with lead poisoning and fucking, they don't grow up mentally deranged with no impulse control because they have a porous prefrontal cortex. So, just because of Joe Biden, just because of that one fucking thing.
Right.
Yeah. So Go ahead.
So again, thank you very much for having me on. I'll love to come back on whenever you want. Be more than happy to. It's I work from home. This is my lunch break, so be more than happy to come on, talk to you. Shout out to all the sparklers out there. Just when you're done watching here, just go to liberaldanradio.com and give me a subscribe. It's free to do and help me get those numbers up. Like videos, comment, and get all the algorithms up. Al Gore needs more rhythm. So,
boy, does he. Yeah. And again, we're trying to, between Liberal Dan and Boston Brian, Texas Paul, who's going to be on the radio with me tomorrow, and Philip Ittner, of course, we're trying to, raise other voices along with, me building up my show, because I really do believe in that, bottom up and middle out in everything. And so, getting these voices out there, getting people who can articulate what we're all feeling, the eyeballs and the ear holes that they need to help the message spread is my goal in all of this now too. Yeah. Anyways, have a great day, brother, and have a great weekend, and have a great show on Monday.
Appreciate you. Have a good one.
Absolutely. Cheers. There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Liberal Dan. Give it up for him. Liberal Dan. Yeah. Liberal Dan. All right. Again, liberaldanradio.com is the thing. And sorry I had to shut off my software to get this where I don't know why. It's just fucked up. It's just an odd thing. It's a hang up. I'm gonna, after today, like as soon as I hang up with you guys and finish this episode, by the way, give me another like too, because I had to switch streams and it basically started a new feed. Yeah, it might be erased. So just to help us out. And James, thank you, by the way, for the super chat. Means a lot. In the meantime, I will see you guys this afternoon. We're going to cover the Republican Sotu response, even though I already have seen it, which is usually a no-no on this show. We also have plenty of stuff that I'm never going to be able to fucking get through. The wailing and gnashing of teeth on the right is just glorious today. They're already having this big fucking panic attack that if Trump has to debate that Biden, he's fucked. And he knows it. Again, I'll leave you on this. Think of the Sotu last night and think of Trump's victory speech that he gave the other night in front of a crowd of people, which is supposedly where he fucking shines. Yeah, it was ass. Thank you so much, Gail. Appreciate it. All right, love you guys. I'll see you guys this afternoon. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. All right, jumping off. Thanks so much, guys. See you later. I gotta do some tweaking behind the scenes. Up my setup. Calm down. And Mark, thank you for getting a t-shirt. That was really awesome.